Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Chatting Shit about the Commander Cup. Joined by Stuart, Andrew and James. Everyone good?
Yeah, all good, man.
Yeah, good, mate.
Cool. A bit of a Commanders special episode. Wasn't intended to be that way, but a couple of the guys picked them up, so then me and Holmesy decided that we'd join in on the fun. So not much spice tonight, but yeah, useful stuff nonetheless, I'm sure. Stuart, you're up first with the big bad number 1.
Yeah, well, last month I remember saying on this that I said Hypno was going to be the most used mon. I got that prediction right. And I don't know if this mon is going to be the most used mon, but I think it's going to be extremely strong all month. And that is Munchlax, which is Pokedex 446, I believe.
He says with confidence.
I think. But yeah, I just think Munchlax is a great option for this cup because it's first of all, it's a very safe switch. It does good work against a lot of the meta. There's nothing which really beats it hard, I'd say. If you get a couple of licks in, and the chances are you're going to get to at least one body slam, probably 2 or more. And it's bulky as well. It just doesn't go down easily. So you just want to rack up those body slams and get that damage in. And it's just a really solid option. And I think it's the pick of the Commanders myself, but we'll see what everyone else's opinion on this.
Yeah, fair. Have you done any practice this month yet?
Yeah, it's worked pretty well, but you can kind of use it in any position, or you can use it as a lead as well to catch people off. People expecting them as the safe swap, and then catching lead, then they're like, you can't switch into it. You're wondering what you do, and it's quite a tricky one to play around if you get an energy lead on it. And I'd say one of the main things it can struggle with a bit are kind of steals, I'd say, that resist the body slam. Like something like Escav maybe could be tricky, which also has counter damage as well. So I think having a fighter alongside it is definitely a must. I'm liking the look of Toxicroak here. I think it could be potentially the premier fighter, certainly not including the Commanders. So it could be a great partner for Munchlax, I think.
That's interesting, because I thought with when I first looked at Munchlax, I saw Noctowl as the big counter, and with that in mind, I thought Sudowoodo might be the counter user you'd pair it with. I can see Andrew's nodding there.
Yeah, I agree. Sudowoodo is the way to go.
Yes.
I think if you didn't pick Escav as your commander, I think Pseudo.
Yeah, the thing about Pseudo is it's also weak to that counter itself. Weak to water, weak to grass. It's a nice monster, Woodway, but it's not quite as good across the board, I think, as some of the others. But it's definitely good against Noctowl, though. That's definitely a plus for it. But yeah, I think anti-flyers are also quite important in the team. So maybe a nice electric or yeah.
No shortage. There's no shortage of those knocking around, are there?
No. So it's so the thing about Munchlax is that there's quite a few. There are things that it struggles against, but it doesn't struggle against them that badly. And you can manage it so you get the rest of your team lined up, and you can just kind of slot it in regardless. And as long as you have good coverage elsewhere, it's a great mon to pivot around in any position, basically. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I run Snorlax in Prism, and I think, like, you're exactly right when you said you can run it as a lead. I think loads of people expect that to be the safe swap. So if they've got a fight, like the amount of times in Prism someone's had a Hitmonchan, you just think, okay, I'll lead my Snorlax then, because they'll have Hitmonchan in the back waiting for me to safe swap. And I feel like that's caught quite a lot of people out. So it is more versatile than maybe some people give it credit for. So yeah, I definitely think Munchlax has got that role as well.
Yeah, something you've got to be prepared for, I think. I mean, potentially it's not going to be on every team because people have got different commanders to pick, but it's something you will need to prepare for. I think maybe you need to prepare for sort of 80% of the commanders because they're going to be around quite a bit. I mean, maybe not Poliwrath, but for the rest.
Polygraph. I'm joining another stream with another content creator, and I've got to hype up. I think it's released. I think I can say it. By the time this is out, it'll be done. I'm talking up Polygraph with PvP Steve, and by the time I got around to picking a commander, there was 3 left, and none of them really filled me with confidence. But Polygraph is actually and legitimately my favorite Pokemon. So I thought if anyone's going to give Polygraph a good, I'll give it a go. But yeah, I think you're right. It's not got a great deal of going for it.
Was one of those other commanders Steelix?
It was. but I think Steelix has play here. To be fair,
Steelix is such a shame. It was so good back in the day, and now it's like become a bit of a rolling joke.
Yeah. But Munchlax, Andrew, any thoughts on the Munchlax?
Yeah, like Stuart said, it's going to be a popular pick. It's beefy, it's bulky. Most Silph players will have one, from previous cups. I want to say it was Voyager. It was a big picking.
Mm-hmm. Sorceress. It was around like Sorceress, I remember. Yeah.
And I remember it being, a pain in the backside then. I remember actually not having, you could only hatch them, so you wouldn't have a decent PvP one, IV-wise anyway. And I remember spam trading with Ferg the night before the tournament, and literally having no practice with it. And it's just one of those ones you can pick up and play and just run with. So for even newer players, it's definitely a safe bet for them. Most of them might not be used to things like Bronzong, Escavalier, and obviously Munchlax beats those two anyway. So it's definitely the safety option for newer players, and even experienced players. They will know how to get the best out of Munchlax, keep it away from those counter users, and then obviously have stuff in the back for your knocked out.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say is that quite often, we've talked about this in the past, that you can kind of end up in a bit of an RPS format. And we think here potentially could be like a fighting psychic dart one running about. I think maybe Toxicroak, Hypno, Amok is potentially a bit of a running theme. So what you want is you'd want something which breaks it up and potentially beats 2 of the 3. And as many options of those possible, I think, will be a very solid starting ground. And I think Munchlax fills that very nicely in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think it even needs to land the bulldoze to be aim up, does it? I don't think.
No, I think you should just body slam it. Yeah, and obviously the bulldoze will help, but
yeah,
body slam does the job, I think. So.
Yeah, which is, that you think because of the lick resistance and.
Yeah.
You think that match is comfortable, but the sheer bulk on Munchlax makes the dart pull.
Yeah, I've been caught out myself this month with Amok against Snorlax. I've not ended well.
yeah. But Amok's an interesting point because, obviously, as versatile as Munchlax is, it's a big hypno counter. So it's a massive hypno counter.
Yeah.
Especially given that the dark types that are available are Shiftry and Amok. And Shiftry being a commander is being sort of locked. I wonder if 95% of its role could be filled by Amok. The key thing that Amok's not able to do that Munchlax is flip the Toxicroak matchup. But even still, like Sludge Wave does like 60-65%. You're never going to flip that matchup. But it depends how big Toxie's going to be, isn't it? If Toxie's big, you can't do it. But yeah,
I kind of feel also a confusion user is a must almost. I think so. If you either run Bronzong as a commander or you run Hypno, I think that's generally how I'm kind of seeing it.
Yeah.
So Toxicroak will go down very fast to those as well. So got to find the right balance.
I was saying this. I don't know if Toxie will be scared off with all the confusion users if people want to run Venusaur or Roserade. Because are you going to bring both Venusaur and Toxie? I know they're like completely different roles, but if you've got two mons that are just die into confusion.
Yeah. I don't think bringing both is a good idea. Not to the same match anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely not the same.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, on a wider point though, do you want things in a 6 that you can't bring in the same line? Like, unless you're going in with a particular strategy in mind, where like if I see my opponent has Mon X or Mon Y or they don't have this or whatever, then you know what you're going to run. Unless you're going in with a really sort of predetermined strategy, I'm not sure you can even have Venusaur or Roserade on the same 6 as a Toxicroak personally. But you know, I mean, I bigged up Venusaur in episode 1, and any opportunity to pick up Venusaur, I will do it. But I'm not entirely sure how necessary it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
Having played it a little bit, I think it depends how big Lantern gets.
I think Venusaur could be tricky here. Like, I think there's a lot of things which resist grass. A lot. That's what puts me off that.
Yeah. But a lot of them can't hit back super effective, which is, you know, or can't OHKO, like Toxicroak can't hit back super effective. Alolan Ninetales can't OHKO it. Yeah, but I think the fact that like, this conversation started at Munchlax and we've gone off in so many different directions, I think it just shows how the meta is going to evolve and revolve around Munchlax.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly something that you need to prepare for in your team building. Any final thoughts on the Munch?
If you don't need Bulldoze for aim up, and there's no steal about,
Toxie.
Gunk Shot?
No, you're saying Gunk Shot. I knew it was coming.
Toxie.
It's an option.
Toxie and Pseudo. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're primarily going to be using Body Slam. So
Yeah. But that one match you win all month by Gunk Shotting.
So right, last month I ran Water Gun Sludge on my Marsh Top, knowing that it beats Whimsicott in the 0s and 1s, and I thought sooner or later I'm going to line up that Marsh Top versus a Whimsicott and I'm going to kill it, and it's going to be amazing. I played 30 games, 30 rounds, 90 games, not once all month did I manage to line up a Marshtomp versus a Whimsicott. I think I hit Sludge once all month versus a Delian's Leavanny while it was like bug biting me down, and it did nothing because it wasn't even super effective, I don't think, or it was crap. And it was the most disappointing moment of my PvP experience so far. So that's one thing I got.
You got a bit unlucky there. Obviously, I did Exeter for Prism the weekend just gone. I ran Sludge on my Quagsire for a laugh, you know, thinking nothing of it. 2 Whimsicotts, rounds 1 and 3, both one-shotted. Gone.
Yeah.
Matchup.
Nice.
I think in Exeter I dropped 2 games, you know, just surprise moves like that, just completely ending games.
Fair.
That would hurt, yeah.
It's soul destroying, isn't it?
Yeah. So it can pay off, but generally speaking, I don't know. When Bulldoze has the upsides there, I don't know. I think it'd be a bold move. We'll move on to my pick then, which is Escavalier, which we've touched on already. First thing that I wanted to mention about Escavalier is that if doing chatting shit has taught me anything, it's that people love a Cradily, and I think my favourite counter user here is Sudowoodo. Personally, I certainly prefer it to Toxicroak. Escavalier is better, but it's in my mind. But the commander slot might make me consider something else. But Cradily beats Sudowoodo on the whole. I think Sudowoodo can beat it in 2s with a breakpoint or something. But yeah, you're absolutely walling Cradily. And as James was saying earlier, if you bring in Toxicroak, you'd probably not bring in Venusaur or Roserade. But if you do want a grass, that leaves you with Cradily. And being able to beat Cradily that way is pretty handy. You go down to what Stuart was saying about the Hypno, Amok, Toxicroak core. Hypno's running, or PvPoke is suggesting at least, that Hypno runs 5 punch here, seemingly solely down to Escavalier. But the fact that Escav can even take Hypno on wins the 0 straight up with Mega Horn is pretty impressive. Obviously beats Amok. Although that match isn't as clear cut as you might want it to be, because you're not resisting the dark moves. And the Toxicroak matchup is the interesting one, because you actually win 0s, because Drill Run is a good move. You win 1s with a 2 counter lead, so which is very achievable. And you lose 2s because you get counted down. So it's playable. So it could be a really good and useful mon to break up that trifecta. And then I was thinking about what other mons do that, and the ones that I came up with more than anything else were Frostlass and an AWAC, which obviously both struggle with Muck, but they both have outs there with a bit of an energy lead. Escav beats Frostlass in the 1s straight up, and it beats Frostlass in the 2s with a counter lead if Frost doesn't bait. And it's a big bait to go for versus Escav. So it's kind of, if you want to try and wedge it into that slot of breaking up the RPS core, it's sort of the top thing that does that. It beats everything else that sort of does that. And AWAC is the other thing that I sort of put in that category with, again, you don't want it versus Lull and Muck, but if you've got enough energy and you've got the bone clubs, it can be flipped. It's not unreasonable to flip it. You've got Drill Run, which does 63% to that, so it's a massive hit. It's versatile. And we've seen it before with Escav. We saw it a bit last month actually, where it's just the right combination of typing and moves and coverage that can see it put in work. And it happens to do well against a lot of the other commanders as well. You've got Munchlax, Empoleon, Shiftry, Bronzong. Can't really think of any more.
Noctowl?
Noctowl. We'll not talk about Noctowl. It doesn't do great there. But it's not dreadful. It's not dreadful. But
Bronzong, it'll beat Bronzong.
Yeah, it'll beat Bronzong nicely. So yeah. Oh yeah, it'll absolutely dominate Steelix.
If you see a Steelix this month, I'll be shocked.
There's always someone running.
That'll be Jay's pick.
Yeah, that'll be Jay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I tried building an Escav team, and I couldn't. I did find it difficult to build with. That's my concern, and I can't quite figure out why. But I found it difficult to build with. So, something I'm going to look back at. But yeah. I wonder if it's something to do with the fact that if you run Escav, you're probably not running Toxie, and then you're breaking up that Toxie Hypno core, or which is so strong, and yeah, you probably look for a nice strong core somewhere else. But I think that's achievable. I think that's doable. Yeah, what do you guys reckon?
I really like Escav. We just did a practice tournament tonight, and Phil absolutely dominated me with it. So recency bias and all that. But I tried the same. I actually really liked it as my commander when I first saw the meta, and I built what I thought was actually quite a nice team. And I think 3 or maybe even 4 of the mons were weak to fire. And how common is AWAC going to be? I'm not sure, and it's not actually that much fire. And I was saying this to you, wasn't I? That I think was it Delphox you were mentioning, yeah, Delphox will cause you problems. How common is it going to be? Because I was thinking, it probably pairs up quite well with A9, so you've got that Noctowl matchup and things like that, and then okay, they're both weak to fire, and then it just kept coming down to that. So back to the drawing board, I think, but I do really like it as a mon on its own. But yeah, hard to build with.
I don't think we'll see that much fire. I think that's as long as you have some kind of thing that's sort of good against fire, I think you'll be okay. I mean, I think aside from AWAC and what else is in this cup that's fire apart from Delphox?
Macargo.
Fire punch.
Oh, Macargo. Oh, yes.
Fire punch.
Yeah.
Macargo. How does Macargo do against Escav if it's running the rock throw?
Probably poorly, but I would have thought if you're running Macargo, you're running it because it's fire, so surely you'd want Ember. I don't know, but I think Andrew just mentioned that it's the biggest thing is going to be the fire punch hypno, and of course the weather ball.
Oh yeah, Rosa Rage. Yeah.
Matt, it was actually Alakazam.
Alakazam. Oh shit. Okay, fair.
Yeah, and obviously it has counter in it as a community.
Yeah.
So, Escav might not enjoy that because obviously very spammy.
You can probably count it down on Alakazam, right?
Yeah.
Not that bad.
At that point, you're running a counter user that loses to a Alolan Muck, which,
I wasn't expecting Alakazam to make an appearance.
I'll tell you the way to run Alakazam in my mind is Psycho Cut, because there is something that breaks up the Hypnotoxic core with Shadow Ball and Psycho Cut. You're absolutely firing. You're firing those Shadow Balls off ridiculously fast, and as much as Psycho Cut is a weak move, Alakazam's mad strong, Toxic Oak's mad weak and double weak to it. I think Alakazam must play, but not as a counter user. But my question at that point would be: is it better than Frostlass? Probably not. But yeah, you're right. It's if you see an Alakazam, it's almost definitely running Fire Punch. But yeah, there isn't much fire here, but it can come in a variety of forms, and that's the worry.
I think the lack of fire definitely makes Escav really near the top of the list as you can. Does it make? That's obviously the thing that you fear most as an Escav user. Yeah, and not only is there not much fire, but there's plenty to beat it as well. We're in a meta where rock is a main type in. So you've got the option of running Credilli, which works as a grass that isn't weak to rock. You've got the option of running things like Lapras and Lantern. There's plenty that's good against fire here.
Yeah, the thing about Escav, I don't run Escav, so I'm not an expert on it, but I've always found it to be quite frail and not very bulky, and I've also found it quite easily walled by flyers. So I feel that's also a problem for it.
Yeah,
I do think there'll be flyers around.
Yeah, he's easily walled by flyers, but I don't think we'll see many Golbat here.
Emolga.
Do you know what? I've given Emolga a fair bit of thought. I'm not going to lie.
I ran Emolga the other night. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a solid pick. But I think the problem with flyers here is that there's so many options to beat them, and a lot of them are so dangerous with a bit of energy. Like, we all know how dangerous Frostlass is with a bit of energy.
Yeah.
Like Lantern, if you can give it like a 2 or 3 spark lead, there's not much around that's resisting Hydro Pump if Venusaur and Roserade aren't going to be common, because Toxic Rook is. What else? Lapras is a real, fires off the surfs. The Sudowoodo is difficult at the best of times. Like, I'm not too bothered about flying weaknesses here. Like, certainly, well, I'm bothered about flying weaknesses if I'm running Munchlax. But if I'm running Munchlax, I'm not running Escav.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, the flying weakness here.
Yeah. So we could potentially end up with quite different teams from the different commanders.
Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And do you know what? When this first came out, I was a bit worried because I thought, well, we'll see Munchlax teams and we'll see Noctowl teams, and that'll be about it. But the more I think about this and the more I practice, the more I think I don't want either of them. I think I want Escav if I can build a good team with it. But if not, I actually quite like the look of the ones that both Andrew and James are going to tell us about. But yeah, any further thoughts on Escav? No.
If you manage to build a team, share it.
No, if I manage to build a good team with Escav, I'm not sharing it. I'm not running it in practice. I'll just turn up on the day, just be like, right, here it is. Yeah. It's when I tried building a team with it, the meta was like not even 3 days old. So maybe I'll go back to it and with a bit of hindsight, try and fix it. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Cool. We'll move on to Andrew's pick. Exciting. I'm excited about this. One of my favorites.
Right. So I've gone for Pokedex number 593, and that is Jellicent. I think it's a great pick. It beats Escav. It's obviously hard losing to Munchlax. However, if the meta goes the way of must counter Munchlax and people are worried about the Toxicroak weakness to Hypno and they go for the Escav route, I know obviously with Fire Punch it is still a big risk, but I do think if Escav gets very popular, then Jellicent in turn will be a really viable pick. Obviously picks up the Ghosts as well. If anyone does get spicy and run a Delphox, Jellicent's taken that out. I ran some stuff on PvP Poker earlier. I've really not looked into the meta, so I've been proper lazy and finishing up with Prism. So I actually looked at matchups in 0s, 1s, and 2s with Bubble and then Hex. Now, obviously Bubble doesn't really have much use, due to severe lack of fire types. However, in the 0s, Bubble picks you up 126 wins, which is 70% of the meta. Compared to Hex in 0s, it's 128 wins. So, it's not a big, massive, difference at all. And then I think as you go further through the shield scenarios, 1s and 2s, you're picking up extra wins. So in 1s for Bubble, 143 wins. In Hex, you've got 147. In 2s with Hex, you're picking up 150 wins, which is 83% of the entire meta. You're losing to your Munchlax, your Alolan Mux, Venusaur, Shiftry, and Cordilli, annoyingly. But its key wins, I think, are the ones that make it such a viable pick. Hypno, Toxie, Escav, A9, which I think A9 will be popular. That pure Weather Ball spam is going to just let rip on a lot of teams, again, which would lend itself to more Escav commander picks or even Bronzong. And then obviously, again, referring back to the Ghost, you're picking up the AWAC as well with that.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Andrew, have you used a Jellicent before?
Like 2 weeks ago in Remix, I want to say, I started playing around with it. I picked up a house spawn of I think it's 97% PvP IVs, so not amazing, but pretty decent.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, let's just build one. I've never used it, people rave about it. So yeah, it was pretty good. I ran into hard counters naturally.
Of course you do. Yeah, that's how GBL works, man.
Rhythm and all that.
Yeah. But can I ask, how many times did your opponent double shield versus your Jellicent?
Not very often.
Not very often. I wouldn't be relying on 2's results with Jellicent personally.
Because I'm not the greatest of baiters, I'll be honest. I seem to get found out left, right, and centre trying to bait the bubble beam, which is why I considered running Shadow Ball Ice Beam.
Best set.
Yeah.
You think you pick up the shift tree?
No.
Not even close. So I thought, you know what, those debuffs are probably more viable across a month than what the occasional Ice Beam one-hit KO might be.
Yeah, maybe. I see that. I see that. I think obviously Munchlax. If you're running Hex, Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, Munchlax and Noctowl wall it, but obviously it's all hypothetical because they do exist. But if they didn't exist, I think you'd be looking at a top tier mon here. Like, I mean, we know Bubble Beam users always top the PvP rankings anyway when they're around. But I think I think you're right. If the meta goes a certain way, it could be an absolute monster. James, any thoughts?
I really like Jellicent. I run it in Vortex.
Yes.
Yeah, Vortex. And what I found from like the difference between simming it and then playing is the Bubble Beam. And I think I ran it in a few practices, and then I'd just chat with the person afterwards, and they'd say something like, "Oh yeah, game 1 I shielded, but as soon as you showed the Bubble Beam game 1, game 2 and 3 I wasn't shielding anymore." And I think it just takes away that fear factor. You might get the surprise once, but it's not a one-off game. In a best of 3, I don't think you get what you want. And I know you do lose a few matchups. There's quite a lot of, in the ones, I think Jellicent has about 15 to 20 really good key wins that if you get the bait and then you get the Shadow Ball, and you might get that game 1. You're not going to get it game 2 or game 3. So in the end, in Vortex, I did go double nuke, and I really liked it. But it is definitely playstyle. I know Aaron went Bubble Beam and said that was the way to go. It's your own playstyle, I think. But yeah, I went double nuke.
Yeah. And I've always been a big fan of Bubble because of the not being walled by. Because I ran it in Labyrinth, and I ran Bubble double nuke because of being able to farm down Vigoroth. And have a lot. Have the Ice Beam for Mandibuzzers and the Dragon Dark thing. It's Vilus. And I wondered just how, if you go that route, if you went Bubble Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, I imagine the Noctowl matchup isn't that bad. And so you could be in a position there where against teams that aren't running Shiftry or Munchlax, you're looking at potentially a fairly solid safe swap. Yeah, I don't know. So presumably you didn't look at Ice Beam, Andrew. Presumably.
I've not. I had a quick glance at it. I've not ran battle sims on it or anything like that as of yet. I say I literally looked at Jellicent as it did stand out to me. I think everyone, generally their first gut instinct was to go Munchlax.
Yeah.
But nowadays I've kind of learned don't always go with the obvious. So yeah, I think Escav again, it's going to be popular, but I'm 80% sold on Jellicent. That is what I will run as my commander.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is on with
strong percentage.
I don't think I'm a strong enough Escav player to warrant picking it personally. Empoleon is kind of on the radar. I've been running that in GBL quite a lot recently. Again, obviously plays different in different scenarios, but I think if you're familiar with a mon, you'll have you naturally have better results of it. And I think this Jellicent only having minimal, say 2 week usage out of it, is that enough to beat the top players in those close matchups where I will need to know the ins and outs of a mon?
It's true. It's a good point. And I wonder actually as well, as you say, if Jellicent's play is going to be if the meta goes a certain way. I wonder whether it's a case of just go safe early on, go with a Munchlax or or whatever you fancy early on as the meta's feeling it out. And then if it comes to like the 23rd, 24th of the month and you've still got 1 or 2 tournaments left to play, maybe that's, and the meta's started to shift to counter the Noctiles, to counter the Munchlaxes, maybe then that's the time to go for a Jellicent. I feel like the metas we've had certainly this year, I don't necessarily know that this season, I think Marsh shifted quite a lot. They've stayed quite, not stale. Well, yes, stale, I suppose.
Stale.
Yeah. I was trying to be polite, but okay, they stayed quite stale. I think because of the restrictions here in terms of there's the tender restricted, and as Stuart was sort of alluding to earlier, like a Munchlax team's going to look different to an Noctile team, to an Empoleon team. You'd think, anyway, you'd think that that's going to cause the shifts to be quite large. I think, given that there's some quite large swings within those commander picks. So. I mean, again, I'm always optimistic at the start of the month, but I really think this could be a really interesting cup.
I've not looked into the other commanders, but with Jellicent, it is picking up 6 pretty hard wins for the fellow commanders as well.
Which ones though?
So you've got Silph, Escavalier, Empoleon, AWAC, Bronzong, and Poliwrath. Obviously, Munchlax, Noctowl, hard losses, and the Jellicent mirror, obviously, depending on energy, etc. So
I think Munchlax and Noctowl might be the big 2, though. That's the problem. But there is a nice list, regardless.
I think, though, as we alluded to earlier, like Sudowoodo, kind of your anti-Noctowl, spam it out with some rock slides, etc. Keep that quiet. Obviously, you can do the counter damage to Munchlax, hit an EQ or 2, and you're laughing.
Yeah, I think
use against Munchlax, but there we go.
Yeah, it's all right beating 60% of the commanders, but if that 60% is only going to make up 10% of the usage.
And also, it's only going to be one of your opponent's slot, because this is the way I started building. I started looking at, what beats the commanders? And obviously there's a brilliant electric type that beats 8 out of the 10 commanders. And then you think, wow. Is it? So you think, right, so I've got to bring Kanto Raichu, yeah?
Oh, I thought you were on about the Zeb Striker.
Oh, well. We'll see. You know what? I seriously do. This is for another challenge. This is Zeb Striker is the way, right? But Kanto Raichu, genuinely, if you've got a good enough ID, one beats 8 out of 10 commanders. So straight away, he was the first name on the team sheet. But then you think about it in a bit more depth. I think it's the same thing as what Andrew just said with Jellicent there. Is it that good that it beats 6 out of the 10 commanders or 8 out of 10 commanders? Because your opponent will have one of those. They're not going to have 2 or 3 of them. So I think that's the way I started my team building, and then I did turn away from that sort of tunnel vision a little bit.
Yeah. Well, unless anyone's got any more thoughts on Jellicent.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say about Jellicent is that what I really like about it is all the different move options. I feel you can run Bubble, you can run Hex, you can run Bubble, and you can kind of mix and match whatever works best. I'm not the biggest fan of Bubble Beam myself, so I personally would prefer the Hex Ice Beam Shadow Ball combo. But if I did that, I think I just want to run Frostlass. Yeah. That's my kind of feeling. I feel Frostlass to be so deadly, and that's always been my feeling on it. Or I do really like Jellicent. I want to stress that, but I'm wary.
Well, I think it was against you, James, that you gave me a hell of a tough time with the Jellicent Frostlass combo in Vortex.
Yeah, double post works really well in Vortex, because they're similar, but they do have slightly different roles. But I think I agree here that because your commander's such a big pick for your team, that if you can get one of your other 5 to do a job of a commander, then maybe that does give you a bit more flexibility later on.
Yeah. I think.
Or just run double ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. I think we're gonna have to see a pretty significant meta shift for Jellicent to be top tier, but I don't think it's off the cards personally. I think it could happen, but we'll see.
Fair enough.
Well, should we move on to your pick then, James?
Okay. Dan's going to hate me because I don't know the Pokédex number, so maybe someone has.
I'll have to get the meme up.
It's in the 300s. It's one of them. Right. My pick is Empoleon. It looks like a commander, and that's a job done. Like that thing is leading you to more, right? It just looks the part. And what I like about Empoleon is it's kind of what I was just saying about Jellicent there, is I don't think there's something else that does the same job as Empoleon that you think, I'll choose that instead and then have a different commander. I think Empoleon's kind of on its own, so I like it for that. I also like it that it kind of has really dominant wins and actually really dominant loses. It's actually quite a nice team build, because you say, right, I need to cover this, I need to cover that. There's no sort of, if I bait this, I'll win that matchup, or if I do this, I'll do that, I'll win that matchup. It's actually quite a nice team build, because it does exactly what you expect Empoleon to do. It beats what it should be, it loses what it should lose to. I think that just makes it quite a nice, easy mon to maybe as a starting point in quite a hard meta. Certainly my first viewing on it was quite a hard meta to sort of distinguish where my commander was going to be. What else do I like about it? So think about what it loses to electrics, it loses to grass, and it tends to lose to other waters, especially I guess Lantern, you could call it an electric type anyway. It'll lose to Polygraph because that's going to be everywhere. But actually get a couple of waterfalls in, and obviously with the drill peck you then flip the grasses, so that's not a horrendous matchup. So really, if you're just focusing on, right, I need to cover electrics, I need to cover other waters, actually your team comes together quite nicely, I found. Other fighters as well, obviously. But actually you can flip some of them as well. I think Toxie is the only fighter you don't flip with 2 waterfalls in the ones. So, in the 2s you just get counted down. So, so people would be reticent maybe if you safe swap for Empoleon, is someone gonna counter swap with your Venusaur if you've got 2 waterfalls in? Maybe not. If they do, you can certainly win that match if we'll take both shields. Same for a Toxie. If you've got a couple of waterfalls in and they get a Toxie in there, you're going to take both shields. So, and then maybe you've got a Hypno in the back, and then you're in charge. So that's what I like about Empoleon. I think it does exactly what you expect it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we touched on in the last episode was that we weren't allowed Alolan Ninetales. So we haven't been allowed Alolan Ninetales for a couple of months, and now it's back. People are going to be all over Alolan Ninetales. And is there a harder counter to like Alolan Marowak? Is there a harder unrestricted? Oh, I know. Empoleon's restricted. Fine. Yeah. It's a pretty damn hard counter to
Yeah, and also it doesn't matter what A9's running. So there's them mons like Venusaur that you think, right, if it's Palderston, I'm in trouble. If it's Charmander, okay. Empoleon, done that, you're fine.
Yeah. We'll go to Andrew then. So it's slightly different flavour of water type to Jellicent. What do you think?
Like I said earlier, I think it is a very viable pick. I'm just worried though, how does the Escav Empoleon matchup go, James?
You definitely Escav wins in the ones, probably zeros as well. I'd imagine you get
2 Zen takes that maybe.
What is it? 7 counters to a drill run, 5 waterfalls, so 40. Yeah, Escav wins the race.
Yeah. I don't see how Empoleon wins.
But Escav's going to win in evens, but it's not. The waterfall's going to hurt it, so it's not going to come out loaded, and it's not going to come out healthy. Yeah. So it's not a matchup you love, but you're not in trouble. Yeah.
And because the counters aren't stabbed from Escav, you're forcing Escav to throw as well, so it's not going to come out with a load of energy.
Yeah, I'd imagine in the 2 shields you just end up getting counted down, but with the waterfalls, it's not going to have it might have a drill run ready to go on your next one, but you'll have only shielded once if they've done that. So you've got, I don't think it's going to come out even shields with a move.
No, agreed. Yeah.
I think it's a great little pick, to be fair. Like I said earlier, Jellicent and Empoleon are kind of on my initial radar. I think with Jellicent, it's got a bit more bulk about it. I've appeared before and I raved about Galvantula. And generally, my teams need, as I said back then, 6 shields. I mean, I'd be a great little PvP player if I had 6 shields with the teams I pick. But I think now I prefer that little bit of extra bulk. The things that worry me with both, Jellicent and Empoleon are things like your shift tree. Obviously, like you said, Empoleon does have the drill pet to hit back with, or at least take shields. So Empoleon may be the better option. I'm just edging towards the more bulky option.
Yeah, like grass isn't super effective on the Empoleon, but it's so frail it hits like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Shiftry gets there so fast as well, in particular.
Oh yeah, you just get that. Like when I said earlier, you flip a couple of the grass types with your couple of waterfalls. Shiftry is not one of them. You can flip the Venusaur, you can flip the Roserade with a couple of waterfalls, but Shiftry.
Nah.
It's just a no.
Yeah.
Empoleon is not a Shiftry counter.
My thinking about Empoleon is what I like about it is that it puts a dent in anything. That waterfall damage hurts a lot of things, and you get to drill pecks pretty fast as well. So you're covering the grass. Well, it's not really a weakness to grass; it just resists the waterfall. But either way, you cover that nicely. So although it's not as bulky as Jellicent, I think it's definitely got a lot of good positives to it. The negative is the counter weakness, but like I say, if you're swapping it and getting the drill pecks in, that kind of balances out a bit. And like you say, it's not a terrible matchup. You can still basically claw it back from there. So
yeah, you're definitely going to have shields. I think if you're running Empoleon, we've already said you've got to have confusion this month, really. I think if you're running Empoleon, you bring in Hypno. And like if you're safe swapping Empoleon and they do bring in the Toxie, you can force the double shield, and then you've got your Hypno. I don't think you're even though you've lost Switch, are you in that bad a situation?
It's true. So right at the beginning, you said, James, that it was something that you felt like out of all the commanders, it had the least. Like it was the thing that out of them all was the most unique. Like didn't have something that could do a similar job to it. I
knew you'd think of one.
There we go.
It's not exactly the same because it's not got the Hypno resistance, but it's got a Toxie resistance instead. Something I've looked at is Qwilfish.
Oh no! Here we go.
Of course you have.
Of course I have. It's not as hard against things like a Alolan Ninetales or a Alolan Muk, or well, it's not hard against Alolan Muk anyway. But it's the idea of those fast waterfall damage. That fast waterfall damage is sort of mirrored there. There's a bit more spam with Aqua Tail, although that's obviously nowhere near as good a move as Hydro Cannon. And you've got Ice Beam instead of Drill Peck, which again is a bit of it's a big downgrade. But it's not as good. There's no two ways about it. But if you're sort of using the PvP team builder and you see an Empoleon pop up as like a 6th mon or whatever, or a 5th mon that you could use, and you've already got a commander, take a look at Qwilfish. Don't rule it out immediately. I don't think it's amazing here by any means, Qwilfish, but it could do 70% of what an Empoleon does, I think, in most instances. But
don't know if this is the right place to call fish. There's a confusion weakness, there's a ground weakness. I mean, there aren't many berries around. I know there's A9, I know, but
yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think you've got to choose your confusion weakness carefully.
Yes, I think that's the key. I think that's the key. Yeah, if I notice how you stopped at weakness rather than weaknesses, which I think is.
Yeah. If someone brings Venusaur, and there will be teams with Venusaur and Toxin, I'm sure there will. But then your other four have got a counter Hypno. So then you're probably looking at Munchlax, Amok. Is that going to be a common thing that we see this month? Maybe it is. Just go for the double confusion user and 4 Hypno counters. Maybe that's the way the meta will go. I wouldn't like to. It wouldn't be the way I'd go personally.
Yeah, same.
I think you with the core fishing. I think if you listed, I don't know, what would you say, 5 viable commanders, 6 viable commanders. If you find maybe the closest non-commander to that commander, would Quillfish and Empoleon have the biggest gap?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
So that's why I think Empoleon's the best commander, because I think it is the one that you really cannot get elsewhere in your team.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Well, I think that's a good place to end it, unless anyone's got any further thoughts. Pretty short episode, but I guess these commander type Pokemon, they're there for a reason. They're good. A lot of them they're pretty clear cut, but I'm really glad that it looks like there's going to be some variety, because we're all UK based players. I don't know whether any of you saw the meta when it was first released, like at whenever it was, after o'clock in the morning, presumably. we had no idea it was coming. I woke up ready to go into work one morning, and there it was on my phone. I had like 10, 15, 20 minutes to look at it before getting ready for work. And I was just like, not all the months, like, no, don't do this. But I think we will see a bit more variety. I'm quite pleased.
It's a better way of doing a list, I think, than Prismatic. Sorry, I'm just using an excuse to talk trash about Prismatic. It wasn't great for me.
Preaching to the choir.
I've really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, but I think it's having the choice of one that you want to centralise around, and then more flexibility from there, rather than having slots that you have to get in, which I never got to work, I'll be honest. So I'm hoping this is going to be good for us. So.
Yeah, I mean it's good.
Yeah.
It's good that we Silph are trying different stuff, and I know James, this is your season 3 is your first season, isn't it? But the time pickups can get a bit dull. So having these extra little restrictions to build around is like, it's a nice challenge when it works out. When it doesn't work out, it feels tedious and like all sorts of awful. But at the end of the day, they've got to keep doing something different, haven't they? And I think fair play. I feel like they've probably learned a lot this season, and I'm excited for what they're going to do for regionals. Personally, given the amount of stuff they've tried, I'm not going to hold my breath too much, but I think we might get a really interesting format for regionals. But
there's always something big around the corner for regionals. I think Voyager was a very nice one last year. I think to use that.
Yeah, was that your first?
They'll have something up their sleeve, I think.
Was that one of your first Cubs, Andrew, Voyager?
Oh God, I started off in Ferocious or maybe Timeless.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been maybe my 3rd or 4th meta. I entered Exeter for that, and I think I come joint 3rd. So,
solid.
I mean, it was a nice team build, actually, to be fair for that. I did enjoy it. It was kind of my first real challenge of throwing a team together with some thought. So I like the metas like that. Prismatic didn't really enjoy it. First glance, fantastic. By the end, I was just like, let's move on to next month.
Please.
I I mean, and I got a sweep. I got a 4-0 sweep, and I'm still like that. So,
oh,
I mean, it was just, it was nicking someone else's team to do that. So, I can't take any pride or joy.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe it's a step back in the direction that Silph more comfortable with. I don't know, but yeah, I think we'll keep seeing interesting stuff like this, and I hope we do. I hope we do. I don't want it to go stale, but yeah. Right. Well, let's leave it there then. Thanks a lot, guys. Much appreciated, and particularly Stuart. Good luck this month.
Thank you.
Catch you later, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, bye.